All right, guys, so it's time to get this KX450XC finished up. The swing arm just came out of powder coat, so I'm gonna try to do a how-to video on how these kits actually go together. We're gonna start with pressing the bearings in. We're gonna get the jack shaft assembly done, and then we're gonna get the swing arm on the bike. So let's follow along. Okay, guys, so I've got the bearing kit from All Balls laid out, so everything's ready to go. Just got to get everything greased up. I actually like to use a press tool that I made. It just works a lot easier than trying to beat them in. So the best way to get these in is actually to press them. You can also use a actual bench vise if you want to just push the bearings in with let's say a collar or a socket. This is how I like to do it, just on a brand new build. So you can see how simple this actually is. It's literally just a piece of threaded rod, and we're just going to sandwich this and pinch it together. It's going to draw this bearing right in there. When you put your bearing in, you want to go just past this little lip right here, just so that you can get your side thrust bearings in, and of course your seal and your two spacers on the outside. It's going to go exactly like the OEM swing arm. Okay, guys, so the bearings are obviously pressed in. Definitely got to go back and grease them. So pack them with some good grease, such as this Maxim waterproof grease. Stuff's never really let me down. Anytime you're going to put a seal in, definitely want to just rub some grease on the outside of it too. It's going to help it actually slide into the pivot tube. Also check for any burrs on the edge here. I mean, we always try to send these out as perfect as possible, but if you have any bit of a sharp edge here, it could catch the seal if it was dry. That's why I'm saying put a little bit of grease on there, and it just helps with the install. All right, guys, let's come grab some pieces off the shelf. Obviously, when you receive these kits, you'd have them already packed up and labeled, but I'm just gonna show you what we got going on here. So got the jack shaft spacers, got our rear axle spacers. These are the front jack shaft chain adjusters. A couple O-rings. We do have O-ring grooves on these bad boys, so you're gonna have an O-ring on each of those grooves. It's gonna get greased up. It's gonna keep all the grease inside the adjuster. Of course, we've got some assembly bolts I'm going to come back for after. Also got the big wheel front chain block. This is designed for that swing arm. It's a little bit shorter, so it clears the jack shaft. All right, let's get to it. Okay, guys, so O-rings are installed in the jack shaft adjuster. We're going to do the threaded one on the inside, because the bolt is going to go from this side to there, and it's going to tighten this inward. Now you can see I already inserted this into the swing arm, and we have a little locating nub on the swing arm. We're going to put that one to the third notch from the bottom and start there. So I'm just going to work this in carefully. Pay attention to your O-ring. Make sure it does slide in all the way. You want to line that up with that little nub. We did that so that when these are in operation, they're not going to spin, they're going to stay locked into place. See how that's sitting right there. Had to put the phone down for a second just to push it in all the way with 2 fingers, but there's the locating nub. So again, we have it on the 3rd groove. That gets the chain pretty much in the upward front position. So put some more grease on here. So like right here, for example, that's what I was saying, just check for anything. I always have my guys clean these the best they can after they powder coat. Looks like he missed a little bit of powder coat right there, so I just broke it off with my fingernail. So that thing is completely smooth now. See a little chunk right there. So something like that, I mean, that could have held you up when doing the install. So here's the other side here. I'm just being realistic with you guys. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that there isn't going to be sometimes a piece of powder coat hanging off the edge. Like I said, my guys do their best to get them out the door perfect, but you're going to run into stuff like that. So just pay attention when you're doing that, and it'll make the install a lot smoother. So there's that installed. Give it a little push with my palm here. There, so that's in all the way. See how it's flush over here. So also on the third groove, this clocks this side, dead nuts with that. When we weld these together, we have a fixture to line all this stuff up. So we know that's perfect with that side. That's going to be our starting point. Like I said, the third groove from the bottom. Here we go. You guys want to just double check alignment on these, real easy. Just take the bolt that's supplied, just slide it in. It's a pretty tight tolerance. We have a little bit of a gap there. You always got to leave a little bit of play just for grease and alignment. So you can just see that just lines right up, threads right in. Same deal, guys. Just when you get something like this, just check for any burrs. We obviously don't make these bolts. I've only had, say, like 1 out of 20. I've had one where there was like a little chip in the thread, so I just ran a die over it and cleaned up the threads. But see a little flat spot right there. So it's always little details to double check when you're doing assembly on bikes. Okay, guys, here's a close-up of the front jack shaft sprocket. You can see the bearings and seals are already loaded in there, and there's grease on them. So I just want to show you a cool feature we did. This is the first spacer that goes in there. Now this thing is actually a reducer, so this is going to lock onto the bearing, onto the seal, and then because this spacer is extra wide like that on the outside, it's going to keep dirt from getting up inside that seal. So it just slips right in there like that. Just like that. Now you just want to make sure you have it seated all the way, so you can see it's pretty much the bottom of that would be flush with the edge, and it's sticking up about 100 thou on each side. So we also have 2 other spacers that go in there. Now guys, when we ship these kits out, we're going to make sure we get you the correct ones with it. So this one's about 210 thick, this one's about 160. So the thicker one's going to go on the inside. We have that space so that the chain does not touch here. It also aligns you to your motor. And then this guy here, this allows for any movement. Let's say it's plus or minus a couple thousandths when we're welding these swing arms together. So we pre-check this before we ship it out. I'll show you guys how we install those. So we're going to start with sliding that in. I'm holding the sprocket right there, keeping that spacer aligned. You can see the gap right there. See how that one slips right in there. There it is. Okay guys, so again, you can see this is gapped out. This just keeps your chain from rubbing this inside wall here. It could be kicked a little bit farther that way if really needed, if you're running a non-O-ring, but we've actually compensated for an O-ring chain going in there. And on our kits, we're running the slim O-ring chains in the front, or a non-O-ring if that's what came with your bike. That can also be used. But when we get these kits out to you guys, we're going to send you a pre-cut front chain, and you're basically going to use whatever chain you had on your bike. If you request a new chain for the back to go along with the new sprocket, we definitely obviously could do that. I'll show you guys what chain we're actually running. So this is a slimmer O-ring design. I think it's awesome. You know, we don't want to have these things crazy wide. There's a lot of cheap chains out on the market that are just too wide for the bike. This is going to keep perfect clearance with there. It's also going to keep your the edge of your pins from rubbing on your motor. On some dirt bikes, you will get some wider chains rubbing on your engine cases, which is never a good thing. So anyway, guys, I'm going to finish snugging this bolt in. So that's installed right there. You can see how that is. And after putting the chain block on, this thing's pretty much ready to go on the bike. Now the head on this is a 16 millimeter. There it it is, guys. So it's torqued. Spacers are snug on each side. Make sure the sprocket still spins. There's going to be a little bit of resistance just because the way the seals are. So the seals are riding on that spacer. So that's really all you're going to feel. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If you're wondering what this is, those are actually mounts for a chain guard. So that's going to get bolted on there at the end. All right, time to get it on the bike. Okay guys, one last thing. Here is the chain block that we machine in-house. Now this is a split design, so it's up to you if you want to put it on after the swing arm's on the bike. Some guys like to leave it off just so they can see this spacer going in. I'm just gonna slide it on here real quick to show you guys how it goes. So that slips on like that. You can see that's aligned with that sprocket right there. And this is just a simple tighten that bolt. It pinches down, applies a little bit of tension on the swing arm tube and locks it in place. Of course, when your frame's right here, that's never going to go anywhere. I've had great luck with this design on the trikes, and we brought it over into the big wheels. Okay guys, time to get the swing arm installed. First thing you're going to do, you're going to get this rear mud flap off. 2 Phillips screws right here. Get that out of the way. Get your brake up out of the way. Make sure your pivot bolt's already out, and go from there. Okay guys, apologize for all the noise in the background. I've got the plaza table running right now. This is a new linkage bolt that we include for the nylon locking nut. Now, when you go to slide your linkage in, just take a screwdriver, get your hole aligned. See how that's aligned now. You're gonna make sure this bolt's greased, and you're gonna slide it right in there and get that thing torqued up to factory specs. Okay guys, so you can obviously see a better view here. That's why I asked you to take this mud flap off. I'm just trying to make this a how-to video so you guys know how to install our kits on pretty much every bike. It's going to be a very similar design. So you can see the adjusters there on each side. I'm going to show you guys in the next clip how to actually adjust these the easy way. Now, as you guys know, we have these in the starting position. I recommend the 3rd groove. So we're going to go ahead, take our 16mm wrench right here. We're going to get this thing loosened back up. First, I just tighten it on the bench just to show you guys in the previous clip. Okay, so now that that's loose, you're probably thinking, how do I get this off of that nub? So I'm gonna bring this out to about there, which is about a little over the thickness of that. And give this a little tap with a rubber mallet. There it is. So that's off the nub. This one can now be rotated to, let's say, the next groove to tighten the chain. And then same deal here, you're gonna just slide this back out and rotate that. Now, when you go to adjust this chain, every time you tighten this chain, it's gonna move your sprocket back here, which means this chain is now gonna loosen. So now you're gonna worry about this adjustment after you do this, and this will be done after the wheel's actually on the bike. So we're gonna start with the front chain, get that where we want it, and then go from there. It's easiest to do it right now because everything is out of the way. It's easy to get to. And that's the starting point that we like to do. A little trick for you guys. If you're trying to get your master link in, just take a pair of needle nose, and you can obviously squeeze the chain together. It's gonna make it a lot easier because when you have it on a certain setting like that, the chain is gonna be a little bit snug at first, but just remember it's gonna stretch the first time you ride it. Okay guys, so you obviously saw I had my pitch mittens on. These chains are extremely tacky, so just something to remember. Don't get that stuff on your hands if you can do without it. So I like to just take some pliers like that. There we go. Okay, so obviously there's a little bit of play in this chain, so we're gonna go to the farther notch. We're gonna bring this sprocket a little bit farther back, just to take the play out of that chain. So like I showed you guys earlier, get the bolt out, tap it over. I'm gonna start by rotating this guy, and then rotating this one, and tightening it back up. That's gonna put some tension on this chain. Let's check the tension. Just a little bit. That's how we want it. All right guys, it's time for the rear hub assembly. So when you receive this hub, it is going to be bolted together, but I just wanted to show you guys some benefits of having a split hub. Now we do have a dual bearing on each end of this just for strength. And when you go to change your bearings out in the future, you just split your hub and you get right to your bearing. Bearing pops out real easy and then goes back in. When you're assembling this, just so you guys know, this is our center sleeve. Drops in like that. See, we have a little bit of clearance cut on there. And this is recessed and drops up onto here. And it gets bolted down. So that's the rear hub assembly. Again, you're gonna receive it pretty much just like this, bolted together. We also have a sprocket, which requires a sprocket adapter. And then you've got a rotor adapter, which is gonna go to your brake rotor. Alrighty, so like I said, you're gonna receive the hub pretty much in this form. Now it's time to get the sprocket adapter on. There we go. Now it comes with all the hardware. I definitely recommend using some red Loctite. You can do blue. I've had great luck with red though. I've never had any of these loosen up. That's definitely the way to go. Alright guys, so that's installed. Everything's Loctited. Now your longer spacer is going to go on your sprocket side. So you're going to have a shorter and a longer axle spacer. The reason this one's shorter is that's for your brake stay, which is going to fill that gap on the opposite side. So I'm going to go ahead and install it in this direction into the seal. And there it is. So now we're going to move on to getting the studs put on and go from there. Now before you put your rotor adapter on, you're going to want to actually slide your wheel onto the hub. That's going to allow you to more or less just set it right down on here, get your lug nuts tight, and then put your rotor adapter on. Okay guys, studs are installed. You can see I put the washer under the head. That protects the socket from hitting and gouging the hub. Now we're going to get the rotor adapter installed. This is a different style of hardware. So you're going to do the same deal. You're going to put some Loctite on these and get them torqued up. Guys, I just want to clear one thing up. These things are great. They save the wrists after doing it for years and years. You always got to go back and retorque all this stuff by hand. That's just common sense. So I've set everything till it's torqued basically. And when I say torqued, I mean bottomed. I'm going to go back and actually hand torque all this stuff. Now, when you go to torque your sprocket on, and that's really anything like this, you're going to want to hold this and actually torque the nut. You don't want to hold that and then just apply a bunch of torque to this. You're gonna end up stripping it. So do all your torquing on this nut with a wrench, and that's a 12mm on this flake. So you're gonna just end up holding that and then just torquing with this, and that's gonna make sure these are actually tight enough. There guys, so this is a lot of talking in this video. I just really want to show you guys some fine details. So here's the Kawasaki axle blocks. These things are super cheesy. I would not run them. I'm going to be switching this to a Honda style. And it's just a better design. It's going to grab on each end instead of just in the front like that. And same deal on the brake side. Just a lot more material. We are going to use the Kawasaki washer and nut though. It's the same thread and just about the same as the Honda style. That's going to fit right onto the end of our axle the way I like. Okay guys, so the wheel's in. I have the jack set, so it's pretty damn aligned to the hub. It's going to make putting the axle in a lot easier. Brakes in. Make sure you got your groove in all the way. Get your brake line hooked up. Next step, you're going to go to your swing arm. Just take your adjusters out. Those are going to go right back into here. And that's going to be your chain adjuster bolts, same as your OEM swing arm. Gotta love that background noise. Shipping packages out of the country. Gotta make sure they're wrapped up good. Anyway guys, so putting your chain adjuster bolts in. You gotta put some never sees on these bad boys. Just a little preventative maintenance here. Yeah, I'm gonna do this off camera, be a little easier. Chain adjusters in, put it in the forward position so we can start by setting our new chain up towards the forward position. Again, I have the jack set, so it's easy to just go ahead and slide this axle through. I also went ahead and threw some grease on here. You gotta grease stuff when you put them together. If not, you're gonna have binding issues. It also prevents any corrosion from happening. So again, that's the Honda chain block going on this Kawasaki big wheel. Just a better design. So I got one hand on this. I'm gonna get the rubber mallet out, tap it through, and get this going. Now a good starting point for getting your chain adjuster, I like to leave enough room so I can still get a wrench in there. So I've got about 3 threads showing. Same deal on this side. Still get a wrench in, a little bit of a gap, still plenty of adjustment. So we're most of the way forward. Now we're gonna get the chain and we're gonna put it on, get that thing cut to length for this bike. Just keep in mind, if you're gonna do any gearing changes or anything like that, now's the time. If you're gonna go to a bigger sprocket, I'd recommend just doing it now. This is looks like a 50 tooth that we're putting on here. So we're gonna start there, 13 tooth in the front to a 50 back here. Cool guys, last step. Gonna go ahead and get this chain guard put on in the front. Now, the suspension has no effect on this chain. It's literally just here to here. There's no movement up or down on the front chain block, so it's not like your traditional chain, so you can run it tighter. That's how we set them. I actually have it a little bit tight, but I know it's gonna stretch as soon as he rides it. So let's go ahead and put this guard on here and get this thing finished up.